A dog interrupts a funeral by barking at the coffin. When a man questions the reason, the priest becomes nervous, and then this man discovers a shocking secret. It was a cloudy day and the sky seemed sad, just like everyone who was there at Rosa's funeral. People were silent, some holding handkerchiefs, others with tear-filled eyes, remembering all the happy moments they had shared with her. The wind blew gently, making the leaves of the trees move, almost as if nature itself was paying tribute. Suddenly, a loud sound broke the silence. It was Rocky, Rosa's dog, who began to bark incessantly. He was no ordinary dog. He had always been Rosa's faithful companion. And now, there he was, barking at the coffin in front of everyone. People exchanged surprised glances. What could Rocky have seen, they whispered. He seemed agitated, pacing back and forth, but never taking his eyes off the coffin. His barking grew louder, as if he were trying to warn them that something was wrong. Rocky was an intelligent dog, and everyone in the village knew it. Some children began to feel a chill in their stomachs, recalling all the stories they had heard about dogs sensing things that humans could not. Did Rocky know something? Was he trying to tell them that something was amiss? At that moment, some adults began to approach the dog, trying to calm him down. But Rocky continued barking and staring intently at the coffin. He seemed so determined that even those who didn't believe in strange things began to doubt. Curiosity grew, and soon everyone wanted to know what Rocky was trying to convey. Father Miguel, who was at the front near the coffin, noticed that all eyes were starting to turn toward him and the dog. Rocky tried to remain calm, took a deep breath, and gestured for the people to sit down again, but the dog's barking did not cease. With a somewhat uncomfortable smile, the priest decided to approach Rocky and in a soft voice tried to speak to the dog. "Come on, Rocky, calm down. Everything is fine here." But still Rocky kept barking, as if he were warning that something very bad was happening. The priest extended his hand, trying to pet Rocky's head, but the dog backed away, growling softly, never taking his eyes off the coffin. The priest began to sweat a little, wiping his forehead as he looked around, realizing that everyone in the church was watching his every move. "It's just a dog," he said with a nervous chuckle, trying to redirect the people's attention back to the ceremony, but deep down he also seemed uncomfortable. Some people noticed that he avoided looking directly at the coffin, as if he didn't want to see what Rocky was seeing. "Does he know something?" whispered a lady to her friend beside her. Other people began to feel a strange chill, as if something invisible were present. The curious children moved closer to their parents, gripping their hands tightly. Father Miguel, seeing that no one was calming down, said more firmly, "Please, someone take the dog outside." But Rocky refused to leave. He remained there, barking and staring intently, and the mystery seemed to grow even greater. Among all the people attending the funeral was a man whom no one knew well. His name was Raphael. He was a newcomer, someone who had arrived in the village recently but felt a special affection for Rosa, even without knowing her deeply. Raphael had an observant and curious nature. He always liked to solve mysteries, and seeing Rocky's strange behavior made him feel that something was very wrong. Raphael looked at Rocky and then at the coffin, realizing that the dog was barking for a reason. He slowly stood up, adjusted his coat, and walked over to where Rocky was. People watched with interest, wondering what this man they barely knew would do. "Hello, buddy," Raphael said softly, kneeling beside Rocky. "What are you trying to show us?" Upon hearing Raphael's calm voice, Rocky stopped barking for a moment, as if evaluating the man. His eyes shone with intelligence and fear at the same time, as if imploring for help. Raphael then began to look in the same direction as the dog, fixing his eyes on the coffin. He felt a chill run up his spine, as if something were pushing him to discover what was wrong there. Some people in the church whispered, wondering what that man was doing. "Leave the dog alone," said one of the men, but Raphael just shook his head. "I think Rocky is trying to tell us something," Raphael replied, still staring intently at the coffin. "Maybe we should listen to him." Then, without thinking any further, Raphael moved even closer to Rocky and said in a low tone, "Come on, boy, show me what's bothering you." Rocky wagged his tail slightly as if he understood that Raphael wanted to help. He stopped barking for a moment and began to sniff the ground, taking short steps toward the coffin. The animals recalled stories of dogs and cats that sensed dangers or supernatural events, and Rocky's behavior left everyone uneasy. Raphael suggested that the dog might be perceiving something invisible to humans, and the tension increased as people began to question whether Rocky was seeing something supernatural, or if there was another explanation for the mystery surrounding Rosa's death. Father Miguel, clearly uncomfortable, started to realize that things were slipping out of his control. He took a deep breath, adjusted his robe, and with a serious look, walked to the center of the church, raising his hands to ask for silence. "Please, everyone calm down," he said in a firm voice, though it trembled slightly as if he were nervous. "We are here to pay our last respects to Rosa, a person so beloved by all of us." He cast a penetrating glance at Raphael, who was still beside Rocky, trying to understand what the dog wanted to show. "It's not appropriate," the priest continued, his tone rising, "for someone to come here and cause a commotion at such a delicate moment." Some people in the church began to nod in agreement, but others looked at the priest with a mix of doubt and curiosity. Why was he so nervous? Why did he seem so eager to end this situation? The priest then pointed at Raphael. "What you're doing is disrespectful to Rosa," he asserted, his voice now louder and sharper. "Leave that dog alone and stop distracting us with this nonsense." Raphael, feeling the weight of the accusation, looked at the priest firmly but did not back down. Something in the way the priest spoke and his exaggerated insistence to calm things down made Raphael even more suspicious. Rocky at his side growled softly as if he too disapproved of the priest's tone. But Father Miguel, feeling that he was losing control of the situation, insisted, "Everyone, please do not let Rosa's memory be tarnished by this behavior. Let us return to our original purpose, to pray for her soul and eternal peace." His words seemed filled with concern, but for those observing closely, the sweat on his forehead and the tremor in his hands told another story. Silence fell over the place for a moment, and everyone waited to see what Raphael would do next. Before they continued, "Remember to leave your like and subscribe to the channel if you love animals and their exciting stories." Raphael, noticing that the priest was uncomfortable and trying to end the conversation as quickly as possible, decided to ask the question everyone feared to ask. He raised his voice, looking at the priest firmly. "Father Miguel, how exactly did Rosa die?" The murmur in the church grew. Some people looked at each other, surprised by Raphael's audacity. Father Miguel's eyes widened in disbelief. He had told everyone that Rosa had died peacefully in her sleep, but at that moment Raphael's question seemed to resonate through the church like a stone thrown into a calm lake, causing ripples of uncertainty. "What do you mean, how?" the priest replied, his tone now more defensive. "I found her in her bed. She passed away peacefully in her sleep," he repeated, almost as if trying to convince himself. Raphael, undeterred, stepped forward and continued, "But why was Rosa alone? And why were you the first to find her? Doesn't that seem a bit strange?" The murmurs among the people increased, a mix of curiosity and unease spreading through the room. The children watched with wide eyes, trying to understand what was happening, while some adults whispered among themselves, creating an even more tense atmosphere. The priest, now with a flushed face and an expression of barely concealed rage, stomped his foot on the ground, silencing everyone once more. "This is absurd," he shouted, his voice almost a scream. "You're creating a ruckus at a sacred moment, disrespecting the memory of a woman so beloved." He pointed a trembling finger at Raphael. "Get out of here immediately, you and that dog." His tone was authoritative, but there was a growing nervousness in his words. Raphael hesitated for a moment, but Rocky at his side let out a loud bark, as if responding to the priest's expulsion. Raphael knew he had touched on something important, something the priest didn't want anyone to discover. But for now, he had no other choice. Slowly, Raphael turned, took Rocky's leash, and with one last defiant look at the priest, began to walk toward the door. As he exited the church, he felt the weight of curious and distrustful gazes from the people. But he knew he couldn't just leave things as they were. Something inside him told him that this mystery needed to be solved, and Rocky seemed to agree, wagging his tail as if ready for the next adventure. "Let's go, buddy," Raphael whispered to Rocky. "I think we have a lot to uncover." They began their investigation in the cemetery, walking among the trees and old gravestones. The wind blew cold, rustling the leaves and creating a sound that felt like a whisper in the silence. Raphael looked around, realizing that this place had an air of mystery. Rocky was sniffing the ground restlessly, as if he knew exactly where to search. Raphael decided that the first step was to learn more about Rosa's life. He headed to her house, a small stone cottage on the edge of the forest, with a garden that looked abandoned. Upon arrival, he found the door unlocked, as if someone had left in a hurry. Stepping inside, he felt a chill. The place was dusty, but it seemed like someone had recently moved things around. With Rocky sniffing beside him, Raphael began to explore the house, rummaging through drawers and papers until he found a small wooden box on an old table. Inside were letters and yellowed photographs. As he read the letters, he soon realized that Rosa had many secrets. The letters spoke of secret meetings and conversations Rosa had with people from outside the village. Then he found something that made his heart race. A letter in Rosa's handwriting mentioning Father Miguel and stating that she had discovered very serious things about him. Raphael looked at Rocky, who seemed restless, as if sensing they were close to something important. While searching the house, Raphael found a small key taped to the back of one of the pictures on the wall. "What will this key open?" he thought aloud. Rocky let out a short bark, as if encouraging Raphael to keep looking. Next to the key was a photograph of Rosa standing beside Father Miguel, with the church visible in the background. But what caught Raphael's attention was what was at the feet of the image. A small metal box identical to the one described in Rosa's notes about the priest hiding money. "We're on the right track, Rocky," Raphael said, petting the dog. "If Rosa was trying to say something about the priest, maybe this key is the answer we need." Feeling a surge of determination with the key in hand and Rocky by his side, Raphael knew the truth was closer than ever. Now he needed to find out what the priest was hiding, and for that, he would have to search every corner of the village. "Do you think Raphael is doing the right thing by investigating? What would you do in his place? Leave a comment with your opinion and stay until the end, because this story will leave you speechless." With the small key in hand, Raphael felt he was getting closer to uncovering the truth. He and Rocky decided to return to the town center, where they could continue their investigation. The town seemed quiet, but Raphael knew there was something very dark hidden there. He needed to understand the secrets Rosa had kept and what she knew about Father Miguel. Raphael went to the town library, an old place with shelves filled with dusty books and old documents. He began searching for anything that could connect Rosa and Father Miguel with something unusual. After a while, he found an old photo album of the town. As he flipped through the pages, Raphael saw pictures of community events, religious festivals, and finally, a series of photos of Rosa. One of those photos caught his attention immediately. It was an image of Rosa with Father Miguel, but the most peculiar thing was the expression on Rosa's face. She didn't look happy. She looked worried. Then Raphael noticed something that almost went unnoticed in the corners of the photo, what appeared to be a small metal box. Driven by curiosity, Raphael returned to Rosa's house, where he continued his search for more clues. In a closet hidden behind an old curtain, he found a notebook. It was Rosa's diary, and the pages were filled with notes that seemed very important. Raphael began to read quickly while Rocky sat beside him, sensing the tension in the air. The notes spoke of something very serious. Rosa had uncovered a network of corruption within the church. She mentioned that Father Miguel was using the money from the faithful for something mysterious, hiding large sums of money. Raphael kept reading, his heart racing with each line. "He's stealing from everyone and using the trust of the people to cover up his crimes," Rosa had written on one of the pages. Then between the pages of the diary, Raphael found an envelope with more photographs. In them, Father Miguel appeared in hidden places within the church, carrying a small metal box. In one of the photos, he was next to an ancient statue inside the church, with the box hidden beneath the image. Raphael felt a chill run down his spine. "So that's it," he murmured to Rocky. "She discovered everything, and that's why she was in danger." Raphael knew he needed to find that metal box in the church, as it was likely the key to understanding the entire mystery. Looking at Rocky, who was wagging his tail as if ready for the next step, Raphael said, "Let's go, buddy. We have a big secret to uncover." Feeling that the situation was more serious than he had imagined, and with all these discoveries, the truth about what was really happening in that small town seemed about to be revealed. Raphael held Rosa's diary in his hands, and each word felt heavier than the last. He knew he needed to return to the church, the place where all the secrets seemed to converge. He and Rocky hurried through the narrow streets of the village, feeling the adrenaline rise with each step. Raphael was determined to find the metal box mentioned in Rosa's notes knowing that it was the key to unraveling everything. Upon arriving at the church, Raphael looked around to ensure no one was following him. The church was silent, with the doors slightly ajar, and the interior seemed shrouded in shadows. He entered quietly with Rocky by his side and began to explore the place. He recalled the photo he had seen. The metal box was hidden beneath one of the ancient statues. Walking slowly, he approached the statue of a saint in a corner of the church. The figure seemed to watch over everyone with a serious, almost stern expression. Raphael knelt down and, with trembling hands, began to feel beneath the statue, searching for something that might indicate a hiding place. And then he felt it. There was something there. He brushed aside a small piece of fabric that covered the base of the statue, and hidden in the shadows was the metal box that Rosa had mentioned in her diary. Raphael felt his heart race. He looked at Rocky, who wagged his tail as if to say they were on the right track. He pulled out the box, its cold, heavy surface resting in Raphael's hands. Carefully, he opened the lid. Inside, he saw bundles of cash wrapped with ribbons, each labeled with donations and tithes from the faithful. But that wasn't all. Beneath the money was a small key. Raphael took the key and held it under the dim light streaming through the church windows. "What is this for?" he murmured. But then he noticed a piece of yellowed paper stuck beneath the money. Carefully, he pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a map, and on it a location was marked with a red circle. Next to the circle were the words, "Church Deposit." Raphael understood immediately. The key opened some secret deposit in the church. This is where Rosa must be, he thought, a mix of fear and hope flooding through him. He knew he had to act quickly. With the key in hand, Raphael looked at Rocky and said, "Let's go, buddy. We need to find that deposit." They stood up and began to search, following the map carefully as the church seemed to grow quieter, as if the building itself were holding its breath. With the key and the map in hand, Raphael and Rocky headed to the location indicated on the paper. The map led to a small door hidden behind the altar, a door that many didn't even know existed. Raphael felt a chill as he approached. The air seemed colder there, as if something dark were hidden in that place. He inserted the key into the lock, took a deep breath, and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into a dark basement. With a flickering flashlight in hand, Raphael descended the steps and Rocky followed closely, his ears perked for any strange sounds. Down below he found a dark, damp corridor. At the end of the hallway a dim light flickered from a room, and Raphael heard the sound of chains. "Rosa," he called softly, but only the echo of his own voice answered him. With his heart racing, he entered the lit room, and then he saw her. Rosa was there, chained to a chair, pale but alive. "Raphael," she exclaimed, her voice weak but filled with relief. Before Raphael could respond, he heard heavy footsteps behind him. Turning around, he found Father Miguel holding a piece of wood in his hand, his expression filled with rage. "You shouldn't be here," the priest shouted, his voice distorted by anger. "I told you would never find Rosa." Raphael barely had time to react before the priest lunged at him, trying to hit him with the piece of wood. Raphael dodged, but the blow grazed him, causing him to lose his balance and fall to the ground. How can a priest do this? Raphael thought in shock, never imagining someone like Father Miguel could be so violent. The priest, seeing Raphael on the ground, prepared to attack again, but Rocky didn't wait. With a fierce bark, the dog leaped at the priest, biting his leg with all his might. The priest screamed in pain and tried to free himself, but Rocky refused to let go. The dog was determined to protect his friend. Desperate, the priest dropped the piece of wood and began to try to escape, limping and shouting for help. Raphael quickly got back on his feet, his heart still racing, and chased after him. "You can't escape," Raphael thought, knowing that the truth needed to be revealed. Rocky, still clinging to the priest's leg, managed to bring him down again in the middle of the street, where neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. The townspeople were shocked to see Father Miguel, a man who was supposed to be a figure of respect, involved in a struggle with Raphael and being attacked by a dog. Seizing the moment, Raphael shouted, "Stop! Everyone needs to know the truth." As the priest struggled to free himself, Raphael quickly explained what had happened: the money box, Rosa's kidnapping, and Father Miguel's crimes. A wave of disbelief washed over the faces of the villagers as they processed Raphael's words. Father Miguel, realizing he had no way out, attempted to justify his actions. But his words fell on deaf ears. The truth was now clear to everyone. With the priest immobilized, Raphael knew it was time to show the evidence. He led the group back to the church, where he opened the metal box in front of everyone. When the villagers saw the stolen money and the map to the secret deposit, there was no doubt left. The truth was finally laid bare. Raphael then guided the group to the hidden deposit in the church, where Rosa was still recovering from her ordeal. A collective sigh of relief filled the air as Rosa appeared, weak but alive. The joy and astonishment in the eyes of the townspeople were palpable, and Rocky, realizing his mission was complete, wagged his tail happily. With Father Miguel captured and the evidence of his crimes exposed, the mystery was finally resolved. Rosa expressed her gratitude to Raphael and Rocky for saving her and revealing the truth. The priest was taken away by the police, and the town began to rebuild, fostering a renewed sense of transparency and trust. Raphael decided to stay in the village, helping Rosa and becoming part of the community. Rocky was celebrated as a local hero, and together they found a new beginning, united by courage and truth. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with your thoughts on this story.